I do think that we have a critical role to play in society, a critical role to play in democracy, in getting out important, serious information. We've spent a lot of time on television taking interesting stories and trying to make them sound important. Our job is to take important stories and make them interesting so people will pay attention to them.
They can use Twitter, they can use a lot of different digital products to get the headlines. But the headlines don't necessarily tell you how it's going to impact your family, and we can still do that through our storytelling, and they want that from us. They need us to be the ones that, I got your back, I'm figuring out what these headlines mean and what the impact is going to mean to you and your family if you work at this place or that place.
I really believe we're at a point in time now where it's all about an investigative mindset. Every single reporter, every single content producer has to be thinking like an investigative reporter. We spent a long time telling people the who, what, where, and why. Now we have to talk about the how. We have to talk about what led to this.
It comes down to enterprise. You know, I've got stations who absolutely say, you know, if I'm going to get beat at 6 o'clock tomorrow, I'm not going to get beat doing the same story the other guy's doing. I'm going to at least, you know, enterprise my own story and go out there. But then it's got to be big and it's got to have impact to a lot of folks.
By having an investigative mindset, you can drill down to find things that other people can't. That gives you unique content. It gives people a reason to watch your television station, go to your website, look at your mobile feed, as opposed to the 50 other people that are covering the same story. Our job is to verify the truth, to present that in a way that provides context for people so that they understand why something happened, not just that something happened, and then provide a depth when we can to those stories that provides background and, again, context for people so they can understand how and what it really does mean.
And we have got to get better at having our reporters using their sources, using their areas of expertise, their time in the community, and photographers to bring in those stories, have them in the pipeline, and those are always stories that we can do for our newscasts.
We need to bring beats back. We need to invest in our people and make sure it's a priority that they're creating original, unique content. And that means I can't pre-program every second of every day by handing them the next thing to do and pointing them out the door. And if we do that, then we have to accept that we're not going to get that original material.
People who are invested in stories, who still do the sourcing, who still have, you know, multiple years in the market to be able to give it some context, that matters. Probably still matters more for the television and for .com than it does maybe. It's hard to do that in 140 characters sometimes on a tweet, but sure, it absolutely still matters.
We should take a story at the editorial meeting and coach it and talk about, okay, what are good questions to ask on that story? How did it happen? Where, why did it happen? Who's making money? Who's losing money? Ask those questions. And then the second part is talk about, okay, now what would be interesting visual places to tell that story? Because we value visuals in our business, right? So where could we visually tell that story that's interesting? You can't take the time to do that on every story, but as a news director and as a management team, you should be coaching in that way so that they know what you value are stories that dig below the surface, a little deeper than who, what, and when, and that we want strong visual stories.
I think every newsroom needs to have somebody who really understands FOI requests at this point. The amount of data that is available these days is incredible, but you have to ask for it and you have to be aggressive about it. If people don't know how to do that, they need to acquire those skills. There are so many examples of great stories that came out because somebody just dug a little bit further.
I'm talking about being the clearinghouse for that type of information from a local expert known as a television station. Really think that is something that most digital content managers can get their mind around and just get more content up about the big stories.
And at the cornerstone of both of those, today's news and that enterprise journalism, is great storytelling, and we can't forget that. That's something we can do that Twitter and Facebook and everywhere else can't do. We can still tell great stories on television. I can't think of many people who've read a tweet who have cried, or a Facebook post, but there's many people who've watched a story on television who have cried at what they've seen, or laughed. And that's the emotion that we still have and that we can still bring. And staying focused on great storytelling is still really important in our newsrooms.